First thing I want to start off with is, how many of you have a green team or sustainability person at your work currently? A couple? Okay, yeah. So, earlier presentation from West Monroe actually gave a statistic around 37%, which kind of shocked me, that only that many companies actually have like a team or even a volunteer team or dedicated resources to look at sustainability. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. And here's one way you can kind of get started with that effort that I think is pretty effective, and that'll be the go and see approach. So they're a very effective way of getting engagement with your employees. It's simple and easy to get started. So you can start as an individual and just stay late one night and walk around and look at opportunities by yourself, all the way to a point you get the whole company involved and you get other companies to help you out as well with an exchange. We'll talk about that real briefly, but so you can go very small and simple all the way to very large and expansive. And so I'll go through a 4-step process, kind of wrap my head around of how these types of events can work, depending on the format's very similar, just depends on what you're looking at and focusing on for that environmental impact you're trying to improve. So the standard Rockwell Collins, who are we slide. We have about 20,000 employees now. We provide navigation, communication, display equipment. So a lot of the stuff in aircraft, communicating with other aircraft or displaying information for the pilots. So there's a lot of things that make the flight safer. And we've had a lean program since about 1997. So we were pretty early on in getting started with that. I think we should be further along, like a lot of companies. I think you feel like you should be further along after almost 20 years of doing that. So we have opportunities, but we have been able to adopt some of these practices into our sustainability efforts. How many of you have heard of Go and See or Gemba walks before? You guys heard? Okay. So that's basically what I'm going to go through. And there's other terms called treasure hunts or Kaizen events or the Go and See approach. Basically, you're going to go to the work where it's being done, and that's where you're going to make decisions and make observations and figure out what's going on. Not in a conference room, not based on things you heard, but actually physically go to the areas and look at it. So for a waste go and see, we're going to actually just focus on a particular type of waste and try to figure out what's happening and focus our observations around that specifically. And so that aligns really well with a lot of the lean activities that might be going on. So if your company has a lean program, so if you guys, how many of you have like some kind of lean program or process improvement group? Okay, so probably more companies have that than a sustainability department. So you can build this into your existing structure and just say, hey, we're going to focus our activities around this effort. So today, how we reduce environmental impacts. First of all, people get frustrated with, I'm not sure where to get started. So where do I begin? There might be too many ideas or solutions out there, so you get kind of caught up in, we have lots of things to go do, but which ones do we start with? A lot of the solutions are high cost and capital investment, and that can derail a lot of efforts. The team says, hey, this would be great, and management says, no, we're not going to spend money on that. And then the team just kind of falls apart and they go back to work. So we don't want to have that either. I've heard comments like, well, we've tried and we've done everything we can now. The only thing left to do is major renovations and upgrades. And so we'll talk on how that can help get us out of that mindset. Or we said, now we need to bring in experts. Well, we don't have a budget or funding to go do that, so that's out of the question. The workers and employees maybe aren't able to see the opportunities because they live too close to what's going on. One example is we came in at odd hours, and all of a sudden the employees were hearing the air leaks, and the air leaks were on all the time. But when things are running in the factory, they can't hear it, or they've gotten so used to that sound that it's just in the background noise now. So then you get a chance someone else comes in and said, I hear all kinds of leaks here, and they're like, oh yeah, that's true. I guess I've kind of just blocked those out over the years. So sometimes you're just too close to the opportunity, so it's good to have outside eyes come in. And sometimes there's this perception that no one really cares, they're not paying attention, they don't really care about the environment, so what's the point? So I got this acronym out of a class I took at Purdue, and I think it's a good way to think about where would I start focusing my efforts at my company. So you can look at water, you can look at air emissions, like things you have permitting related to. You could have solid waste or trash. You could have toxins or hazardous material or energy reduction. So it fits in nicely with the lean concept of waste. So if you think about currently, where would you guys think that your opportunity is at your company? Of those 5 areas, which one is probably the biggest opportunity? Energy?
Water.
You guys use a lot of water? Okay. Any others?
Toxins.
Toxins? You guys have toxins? Okay. Yeah, so those 5 areas, and there's other things that are included that go a little bit beyond that, but these are some 5 pretty easy ones to remember and pretty big categories. So that's the place to start. Is where would we begin with this effort? And we're going to dig into that. So once you decide what your waste area you're going to pick, then this is the process we want to walk through. We're going to basically prepare for that activity, then we're going to actually conduct the activity, then we're going to combine our ideas together, and then somehow decide on which 3 or very few ideas we're going to go off and pursue. So I'll break that down here. So first is preparing for the event. So we'll have basically a planning worksheet that we're going to put together. And most of you are probably familiar with some kind of charter form or some document that says, why are we working on this? Of all the things we could be working on, what's the business case? What area we're going to focus on? Is there a scope around it? Who should be involved? And what kind of schedule do we have? And that's kind of wrapped up in a document of some sort. So we'll call it a planning worksheet, but basically you're filling it out. You identify the different items, list out the names of people, the scope, why you're doing it, time frame, and then you have some kind of approval that says we're ready to go, we have the right people, we have it laid out, we have a plan, now let's authorize it and let's go execute it. And that's pretty standard, so nothing earth-shattering on that. Then we actually get into the event. The thing is to look at it from different perspectives and different times. So when you normally think about process improvement and lean, you're going to see the work when it's being done. And this is a little different because sometimes you have to go where the work isn't being done, or at times when the work is not being done, because that's where the opportunities are at. That's when you see that the lights are left on. That's when you see that there's leaks, or that the machines are running still and no one's working, or that the things aren't being handled properly, or they're being left out overnight. Those are where some of the observations are made. So usually we'll start with an off-shift observation period. So those usually start on the weekends. You pick like a Saturday afternoon when we expect not many people or hardly anyone would be there, and you start making observations at that point. Then you look at start of the shift. So as people come into work, what are their activities that they do that align with that? Or do they turn on all their equipment right away, or do they wait until they actually need to use the equipment? Then the actual working time. How is the energy being used? How are the items being thrown away or recycled? And how's that happening during the work hours? So that's the typical observation time, but that's just one of 3 or 4 different times we'll do the observations. And then a shutdown or transfer of shifts. So as people are leaving their work for the day, what happens? Is that when they take everything out to the recycling bin? Or is it when they power down equipment, or they leave it up, assuming the next person is going to use it? Those are the observations you're trying to make. And you break up into smaller groups and go and maybe focus on a certain area, depending on the size and scope of the effort. So if you have a whole large facility, you're going to have quite a few little teams that are going off, and maybe they'll all go into a certain section. And you'll have a mix of people who have knowledge of the area, and then other people who have absolutely no knowledge whatsoever, so we can get those fresh eyes perspective. And you want different levels of management too, and employees. So individual employees who work in the area, all the way up to as high a level management as you can get, so they can kind of see with their own eyes what's going on. I got a couple videos I want to show you. And this is, GE did a really good job of doing treasure hunts for energy savings. And so these will be a couple videos that they've covered. Okay, the third approach is, they called this Better Buildings Challenge or swap. But basically what they did is had Whole Foods and Hilton each took a team to the other facility, and the other team couldn't help them at all. They couldn't be involved. So they basically kind of, there's like a 3-4 part episode that goes along with this. It's pretty good. I won't go through it today, but it might be something you want to check out. But they got to a point where they said, all right, I think we've found all the opportunities internal. Now let's let other people come in and take a look at it. And so it's a little, you can tell that they're kind of nervous about bringing other people in, but they all found new opportunities because maybe that company had gone down this path of recover heat, and this other company had gone down the path of LEDs, and they each could bring that knowledge to the other company. So it was kind of like the next level of go and see is actually exchanging with other companies. So if you have a partner company that you work with, this would be a great idea to get you both started in the right direction. So at Rockwell Collins, it's probably 5 or 6 years ago, we started trying to incorporate this go and see approach. And we did about 7 or 8 of these events in Cedar Rapids. And some of the main culprits, like I mentioned, was air leaks, compressed air issues where we were using 2 sets of compressed airs, and it's we probably could have gotten away with 1 if we had addressed some of those issues. Or there'd be leaks in the pipes and tubing. And then just general equipment left on. So we have a lot of test equipment, and those would just be left up and running. You know, fans on, lights on, of course, ovens, and a lot of manufacturing equipment. They just kind of left on for various reasons. Some seem legit, others are just, you know, there's really no expectations around what should be left on or not. So those are some were fairly easy opportunities. And then in the site I'm at now, we, the day after Christmas, we actually we had like 3 people that were willing to come and do a little tour of the site. So it wasn't a full event like I was hoping. I keep pushing for it, but that's kind of couldn't really get a lot of people excited about it, but I found 3 people. So we all got together and did it. And that's step 1, you know, and it started because I'd stayed late a couple times and I saw, hey, there's opportunity here. And then you get a couple, you know, this is what I saw. Are you willing to come out and take a look at it too with me? And let's write it up formally. And let's see what happens on, you know, right after a holiday. So we saw that occupancy sensors were in place but weren't working. So there was a section of lights that were on even though there was occupancy sensor. So it was basically broke. And you would never know that unless you're looking for that specifically. A lot of personal fridges and heaters in the cubicles. Those aren't technically allowed. They have to go get approval for those, and those weren't approved. So some people were upset probably the next day. Got a notice that they had to go through proper channels. Tons of light fixtures. As we started going around and actually counting up all the light fixtures, it was massive. And in fact, that's the path we're going down right now, is looking at lighting, because it's so many fixtures and so much light. Kind of like the bathroom example in that video. We are the most well-lit facility you'll be in. And it's completely excessive, so from a form of waste. And then some areas did a lot better than we expected. There's a couple labs that everything was shut off, power down, and we're like, that is awesome. That is exactly what we want everyone to be doing. But it's just hit or miss. So you can observe good and bad behaviors from that. So in the third section there, we're trying to find ideas and opportunities and get them all on the page. So as you're walking around, you're making notes, and then you get back together and you come up with these ideas. And we want to go through, have you seen this waste pyramid before? Like kind of the areas you want to start at. First step, number one, is refuse anything, and then all the way down to, here's recycling, down towards the bottom. A lot of people think, well, I'm recycling, I'm doing a lot of good stuff, but you need to start way up at the top here. So what's an example of refuse when in terms of coffee, drinking coffee? Bring your own cup? Okay, yeah, perfect. So bring your cup everywhere you go, and that's an example of refuse. I'm refusing to get a new paper cup. How about the reducing? What would be an example of reducing your coffee cup usage? Let's say if you don't bring your own, you're buying one, or getting one provided. Yeah, so you could say, I'm going to use this paper cup the rest of the day. Or I'm going to not go as frequently, right? I'm only going to go once instead of twice. So that's it, reduce. How about reuse? Actually, they're kind of interchangeable. Reduce would be, I'm going to cut down the frequency. Reuse would be, I'm going to reuse that cup a couple of times before I dispose it. And then recycle would be what?
Recycle the cardboard on it, use it again.
The cardboard sleeve I can recycle, right? Can I recycle the cup? Does anyone know? Yeah, it's got like plastic in it, apparently. So you can't actually recycle the coffee cup. A couple places are trying to experiment, like Seattle Airport and stuff, but most of the places you can't recycle a coffee cup. So that's not even an option. And then what's recover?
Electronics, certain materials within printed circuit boards and other things that can be reused for other.
Okay, so you could break it down a little bit, or they actually talk about, like on a coffee cup example, they would say, can you burn it, incinerate it, and use that energy that went into making it and re-extract that back out and use it for heating or something like that. But, huh?
Art project.
Art project, yeah. That might be the reuse or the down cycle, I guess it's called. And then dispose, it should be the last option, right? That it goes to landfill. So same thing with all these things. Is there a way to refuse and go through a list on the solutions you come up with? And usually it's a brainstorming activity. A lot of you have been through something like that where you've got different post-it notes and then you try to group those into like items, and everyone has a similar idea, so you put those together. And you're just trying to get good themes and categories for your ideas. And then the last step is then try to prioritize these somehow. And so there's lots of different ways to do this. This is just a real simple way of impact versus ease of implementation. And you're trying to find the items that are up in this upper section here. This one to be around saving energy. So 7 and 8 look like turn off the ovens at the end of the cycle and install occupancy sensors in offices and conference rooms. So those are not too expensive, or sorry, have a big impact and probably fairly easy to implement. And some people could also add a cost element to that as well. So you kind of open these categories, and then you could also apply some kind of a voting system. Has anyone done the multi-voting with dots? That's a pretty common approach where everyone gets 3 dots or 7 dots, and you get to put your dots on the items you think are most important. So this kind of, the previous matrix is maybe more technical, and this one incorporates lots of different things into that consideration. So it allows people to be part of that decision-making criteria. And so maybe they come out to the same conclusion, but just getting people's buy-in on the solution that, hey, I voted for that and I'm supporting that. And then those maybe 1, 2, or 3 items can go forward. The problem I've seen in some of those is we come up with 100 actions, and then it's just a huge list, and they try to work through 10 or 20 of these actions, and it's just too much. So just keep it to 2 or 3 actions only. And everything else gets documented and stored, and we can come back to it later, but focus everything around just a couple of things. Make sure those get actually done or pursued. So these are the 3 areas you could do, like a water walk for looking for water. So you'd follow through the pipes in the building, look for leaks, look for where things are being diverted, what happens, go to the machines that are using the water, is it being used efficiently? We talked about the energy walk here, and then another one would be called the dumpster dive or a waste audit. So you're actually going and looking at where the solid waste is being generated, but also go through and actually dissect out and get data on what is in that trash. Is it recyclables that aren't being put in there properly? Is it, where's the source of all this packing material? Oh, it's coming from that supplier, keeps sending us, they're a pretty frequent supplier. Can we work with them on reusable containers or something to cut the packaging material down? We know, like in our business, that's a huge amount of labor too, of unpackaging product. Because we want to protect it, but if we're spending 10 minutes every part coming in, that's huge dollars of labor that's tied up in packaging. So it's not only the trash that's getting generated, but it's the labor involved. So for us, that's a big opportunity we're looking at right now. So in the future, with these types of events, you can educate your employees so they can start to see those opportunities every day. Once they, just like lean, if you can start to see the waste, all of a sudden it's like, hey, why is that on? Hey, and they can start educating their coworkers and employees. And you're engaging them in improvement efforts. You're finding some low-hanging fruit opportunities that maybe are overlooked or wouldn't be caught through other means. You don't really need an expert or huge upfront costs to get at some of these improvements. And you want to keep a reduced list of improvements down so those actually get implemented. And that's kind of a recap here. So a very effective approach that you can use you can start with yourself, or then you get to a small group, then you do maybe this formal event, then you can do something company-wide, and then between companies at the end. So you can scale it to wherever your company's maturity level is at the point. And for us, at some sites we were able to go right to formal events, and the site I'm at had to start basically individual and small events, small groups. And then there's a 4-step process you can follow, or there might be an existing process you already have that fits into that nicely. So from there, I heard some energy and water activities. Is there any concerns or questions on how you could actually get started with that at your company? Curtis.
Just the concept of how to create buy-in from those who don't see the obvious. Are there any types of methods that you have found that help shape the narrative that moves forward?
Oh, you mean like for the people going into the event, or the management support of it, or?
Yeah, primarily management support, but
Okay.
even if it's a coffee room kind of chatter, how do you package the narrative to say, this is actually worth our time?
Yeah, yeah. So what we did in the Cedar Rapids location, headquarters, was we had assigned a goal for electricity reduction. And then each area, we monitored their usage for a week prior to that event. So we had some data that was specific to them, and we had a goal that they were aligning to. So that helped a lot. At my current site, we now have a goal. So I think that does play a little bit in to say, hey, this is going to help us achieve some scorecard goal or some goal of a project we're running. So that, yeah.
I don't mean to be difficult, but even convincing people that that is the goal we're setting over other goals and then doing it.
Yeah. You're saying like, why would we have an energy reduction goal
Right.
or something? Yeah. So I think there's the hard savings. Energy, usually there's a decent business case for on dollars. Other things like our solid waste, we don't have a business case on. It's like, it's very inexpensive to get rid of trash. So that one you have to kind of sell a little differently. But energy specifically, there was actually a good business case for the amount of money we're spending each month. So that was fairly easy. Also, we started looking at future costs increase in energy, potential carbon taxes. I think there's some other things you want to tie into. We also were getting a little bit of customer requests to see what is your carbon reduction plans. Investors are starting to ask that question, even though we're not really a well-known publicly company, unless you're in aerospace. It's starting to get that attention. Like there's a carbon disclosure project basically that drove a lot of this, and it's self-reporting of your carbon emissions, and you put together a plan, and basically our CEO got a letter that says we don't think your plan's very good. And so all of a sudden there was a little bit more tension. He said, what are we going to do about this? And that came out of some of this activity. So I think trying to leverage as many of those other areas to your advantage, and tying it back into your company's vision and stuff too. Like I think for us, we're looking at, we do really well with ethics, and we get ranked pretty well in that. So it kind of goes back to, hey, this is, from an environmental perspective, this is something we should be taking care of as a company if we really are bought into it. So some of the intangible stuff would help. I don't know if that helps or not.
No, it does. It paints this is probably one of the, it paints the broader narrative that may need to be accessed in order to get some leverage to actually do that, which is obvious.
Yeah. We have, it's just certain, as certain individuals get it too, and trying to leverage them as well. So some sites had facility person really on board, others not so good. When they left, all of a sudden a new person came in, all of a sudden we're pitching a lot more stuff again. And so it does help a little bit.
So for rented facilities, something that I've struggled with because I'm in a small office building.
Yep.
We don't control the waste. There have been many passive aggressive sticky notes to the people who take our waste that have failed, all the way from like throwing our coffee grounds that I wanted to compost, to taking our shredded paper and throwing it away that I wanted to compost, and our recyclables I'm fairly convinced to get thrown in the trash and things like that. So
Do you have an outside service that deals with that?
So we rent our facility. So essentially we're in an office building in downtown Columbus, and
Yep.
we rent part of the floor, and the whole building is handled, consistently with their waste
Okay.
and whatever, and the energy. And so we control very little of it, and my efforts have not worked going to specific people. I even tried calling and emailing like higher management and stuff, and so I don't know if you have recommendations or if that's
The building I'm at, we lease as well.
Yeah.
It's a manufacturing site, but it's a dedicated building, and we have third-party people who do the janitorial and our electrical work.
But you pay the third
But
party.
we,
You guys pay the third party?
We do.
Not the lessor? Okay.
yeah, that's true. So some things we share, like actually, part of another building we share the electricity on, so it's kind of weird. And then we pay the bill on the water usage for landscaping that we don't control, and we pay the parking lot. We don't pay the how does it work with the parking lot electricity? There's something weird about the parking lot. So yeah, there's some little confusing things like that. But I guess in that case, we can go and work with the third-party company and kind of influence them directly. So I guess that would be a challenge if you don't have the ability to go say, hey, this is what we want. Because they've been very willing to work with us, but again, we're paying directly, and we can say, we're going to go pick somebody else.
Yeah. Versus you're signed a lease for 10 years. They have, it's kind of like landlord issue.
Yeah. So some of it we've had to bring in landlords on and say, hey, we were thinking about doing this. Is this something we can do?
Okay.
Would you be willing to help fund that, because it's going to help the building out, So
Interesting. Make it more like this could benefit you. Maybe it's something to think about for your whole building, not just for us.
yeah.
Okay.
But the difference is, I guess we rent the whole building out, not just a floor of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a little bit different. Any other questions?
I have one. I mean,
Yes, well.
Good.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. So, do the people in the formal groups get paid at all? And what would you say is a minute max for the formal governance?
The amount of time.
Minute max number of people,
Number of people,
and then whether or not they get
So
paid.
we were doing, so that was the manager, getting the managers bought into that, because sometimes overtime was paid because it was outside normal hours. But that's where we worked with the manager of that area first and got their approval, and then it was not a big deal. And then I think we had 8 to 12 people on the formal ones, and then we'd have 3 or 4 different teams going around. So, but it depends on the square footage too. So I'm terrible on square footage estimates, but it's probably 100,000 square feet or something like that area. We probably had 4 teams running around, and it was probably 2 hours at a time. So it wasn't like we're spending all day on that afternoon. It was, from 1 to 3 o'clock was the first session, and the other one was 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. So it just total was probably 8 to 10 hours of time. So it wasn't too bad, but it's just odd hours that threw off the schedule a little bit for the hourly paid employees. For the salaried, it wasn't that big a deal.
Okay.
Most of the time, their manager was supportive of it. So.
Okay. But I guess it kind of gets to Curtis's question of would it make sense to try and incentivize them, even salary, where it's like, hey, if you come do this, even though you don't care squat about the environment, you get a Starbucks gift card or something,
I think we gave pizza.
Okay.
So that was some incentive, free lunch, and it helps to find some people who are interested in, but it does help if you can grab a couple that aren't, so that they kind of get interested. So I think once you go through that, they, even if they only concerned about dollars, they see, hey, we're wasting money as a company, and whatever their motivation, hey, that's great, as long as they're kind of helping that cause.
Okay, I'd like to say thank you to Brian for that presentation today.
Thanks for coming.